If you didn't know, there's a research paper by McKinsey showing that people are 500% more productive, literally 5 times more productive in a flow state than otherwise. Now, if you're unfamiliar with flow, based on Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, famous for writing the book Flow, he states that you experience a state of flow when you lose self-consciousness, a sense of time, and work becomes effortless and enjoyable. You know those times where you're so engaged into the work that you're doing, you're so dialed in, 100% focus, where you complete the work and you look back and you've been working for 2, 3, 4 hours straight, but it only felt like it was a few minutes. That's what flow is. You just experienced flow. And when you experience flow, you can get significantly more work done than otherwise. And this is a game changer, because if we can value the power of flow and can predictably get into a flow state, we unlock a level of productivity where we can potentially get a week's worth of work done in a day, and a day's worth of work done in 2 hours. But the question is, how do you consistently get into a flow state and stay in a flow state so we can unlock this next level of productivity? Well, I brought the iPad out today, so I'm going to show you exactly how to do that step by step. So the question is, how do we know when we experience flow, and how do we predictably implement it into our workflow so we can be 500% more productive all the time, or most of the time? So there are 5 elements to experience flow. You experience flow when you have a clear objective, you know exactly where to put your attention onto, a need for concentration so intense that no attention is left over. You put all your attention to one thing, and because you put all your attention to one thing, there's no attention left over for other things. A lack of interruptions and distractions. You're not multitasking, you're not doing multiple things at once. You have clear and immediate feedback on progress towards the objective. You can clearly see that you're progressing, and there's a sense of challenge that calls you to put your attention onto completing this objective. When we implement these 5 elements, that's when we improve our productivity and we can get more things done in less time. Now, how does that actually look like? So I'm going to walk through a visualization for you guys. So let's assume you're working with 3 clients, or you have 3 different projects for each client. Client 1 requests you to complete a project, client 2 requests you to complete a project, client 3 requests you to complete a project. And let's assume for each project, it takes you 2 hours to complete. Okay, so how do we implement flow if we want to work with client work, especially 3 clients and 3 projects, or whatever task you have or activities you need to do? How do we implement that? So this is how it would look like. So I put a visualization over here. So what flow works like, we focus on one thing at a time. So what we would do is we'd start with client 1. So we'd open up client 1. So at hour 0, because it takes 2 hours to complete a client project, at hour 0 we'd start the project. At around hour 1, possibly we're halfway done. And then hour 2, we complete this project. So it's done. And because we're done with this project, then we put our 100% attention into this project. That's when we experience flow. We complete it in 2 hours, it's done. This is what flow is all about. It's starting one thing, one clear objective, which is the client work, 100% attention into it, no distractions, as you can see over here. Clear and immediate feedback on progress, because we're completing it, and a sense of challenge, because we're working on one client work at a time. It's a sense of challenge. We want to complete it as soon as possible. So once we're done with client work 1, so this is done. Next, we hop onto client number 2. So we do the same thing. We start the project, halfway through, 1 hour, we're halfway through, 2 hours in, we're done. Then we can move on to next project. We start in hour 0, hour 1 hour away, we're halfway through. We can clearly see progression towards completion. We want to complete it. So 2 hours in, we're done. Now, this is what flow is all about. Flow is about getting things done one by one, making sure there's a project that's being completed always. You're completing and moving things forward. Now, this is really good because client 1 is happy, client 2 is happy, client 3 is happy. Everyone's getting their work done. Everyone's getting their delivery done. Now, this is flow. Now, to understand the power of this, we need to understand what is not flow. So let me take this as an example over here. I drew it out in advance to save some time. So what most people do is, instead of starting each project and focusing 100% in each project, what they do is they do this. They start multiple projects at once. Let's say client 1 asks to start, and then client 2 comes and say, hey, where's this project? When's it going to be done? And you tell client 2, oh, no worries, we're going to work on it right now. So you start on that too. And then client 3 comes up and says, hey, where's my project? So you say, cool, I'm going to start that too. So you start all 3 projects at the same time. Okay. 2 hours pass by and you got nothing done. Compared to when you focus on one thing, you already got client 1's work done. Okay, cool. 2 hours pass by, you just started all 3 projects. Setting things up, you maybe worked on this a little bit, client 1 interrupted you, client 2 interrupted you, so you started all 3 projects. Now, let's say you actually start working on each of these projects separately. So you're halfway done. Over here, you work a little bit on client 2, and you work a little bit on client 3. Okay? Let's compare that again to flow. Over here, you had already completed client 1 and client 2, but you completed with nothing. And 4 hours passed by. You completed nothing. Let's say you continue working. You eventually get to finishing client 1, and then you finish client 2, and then you finish client 3. So the only time you finish things is on hour, let's put this. This is hour 2, this is hour 4, and this is hour 6. The only time you actually finish work is on hour 5, actually hour 4, hour 5, and hour 6. So compared to flow, you're getting something done 3 hours later. So let's compare this. So client 1 is getting their work done here compared to when you're multitasking, they're getting their work done in 5. This is taking 5. So instead of taking 4 hours, you're taking 5 hours. So there's an hour delay. So this is why flow is how you get more things done. Because you might consider that, okay, this takes 6 hours, this takes 6 hours, right? Both of these take 6 hours. And you might think the productivity is the same. We're all getting all the work done at the same time. It doesn't really matter. Like in macro scheme of things, we still got all client work within the 6 hours. So there's no big difference. Now there's one thing that we're missing here, and it's called context switching, or actually being a human. Because what we're assuming here that you're working like a perfect machine in multitasking. You don't lose any attention here in between these things. You don't lose any attention here. You're not losing any attention. You're perfect at switching context here to context that, and you have no attention residue. When in reality, it looks completely different. All right, so this is how it would look like when we include attention residue and context switching from client work 1 to client work 2, and so on, client work 2 to client work 3. Now, what happens is each different client has different specifications that they want their projects to be done, and requires a complete different context. So let's say client 1 wants this done, client 2 wants that done. You're going to need to transition to working on a different project. And what I'm going to assume here is that it takes around an hour. This could include a break and then setting things up for the next client. So instead of completing things in 2, 4, 6 hours, we're going to include context switching. That adds an hour between switching between different projects. So 1 hour between client 1 and 2, and then 1 hour between client 2 and client 3. And what happens is, in reality, we finish client works 1 in 2 hours, client works 2 in 5 hours, client work 3 in 8 hours. Now, compare this to multitasking, which is completely worse, which is what people do. This is how it would look like. Because you're constantly switching from project to project, that adds more time in between, more context switching. I'm just assuming it's 1 hour. It might be less than 1 hour, but I'm going to standardize things to 1 hour. So let's say you start here with client works 1, then you switch to next client. That takes an hour to figure things out what client 2 wants, and then an hour to figure out what client 3 wants to set things up. And then before you start working on client works 1, client works 1's project, you get it halfway done, then you realize you need to work on clients 2, then do client 3, and then you finally finish all of the work. So what happens when you add up all of these context switching hours, you only get things done 9 hours in, 10 hours in, 11 hours in, compared to when you use a flow system and you focus on one thing at a time. What happens is it takes a whole 7 hours to get ClientWorks 1 here. It takes a whole 7 hours, which is ridiculous. You might run a risk of losing your clients because you might let's say if it's not 2 hours, let's say it's a day. You promise to deliver in a day. Instead of taking a day, it's going to take you 7 times longer. It doesn't take you a whole week when you promise to get it done in a day. So you're going to get work done significantly slower if you multitask. This is why flow is how you improve your productivity by 500%. Like, you get something done in 2 hours compared to 9 hours. That's 7 hours faster. Let's put this here. 7 hours faster. You get client work 1 7 hours faster. This is done 7 hours faster. Let's just put this all together. This is done 7 hours faster. This is done, let's see, 5 hours faster. And this is done, client work 3 is done 3 hours faster. So across the board, every single client is getting their work done significantly faster because you know how to focus, you know how to set boundaries, you know how to set expectations with clients. This is how you get more work done in less time. And this is very important because a lot of people mistake multitasking with getting more things done when in fact it's implementing flow into your system. The flow system is how you get more stuff done in less time. And the thing is, when people multitask because they're so bad at getting work done and implementing flow into their system, they get a feeling where they need to hire people to get work done, or they need more time because they're so busy with their workflow, they're context switching all the time. They're very inefficient at delivering work to their clients. So that's why they get a feeling why they need to hire someone or they need another day to get more work done. If you focus and you know how to get work done and you implement flow, you get work done faster, your productivity is significantly better. You don't need to spend as much money hiring people, so you save costs indirectly, and you save wasted time and energy. And you basically get more time to get more things done, and that allows you to make more money, especially if you are an entrepreneur. Flow should be the first priority you should do, or the first lever you should pull if you want to make more money. It's not hiring someone else, because you make more by elimination, not by addition. And that's the whole concept of flow. Now, if you want to learn how to implement flow into your workflow, specific systems and changes to your workflow you could do each single day, then you can go ahead and join my email list. It's called the 2-Hour Man's Newsletter. I send a daily insight on how you could get 8 hours worth of work done in 2, and how you could use that to grow your business by 40% more. If you're interested in that, click the link below and join the list. All right, so next is, how do you implement flow? Well, I like to use a simple strategy. It's called the 2-bin strategy. So it's very simple. It works like so. You set, if you're going to work with a to-do list or a Kanban board, whatever, you're going to set 2 different categories. These are the most important categories. You could add more if you want, but there's 2 different categories that you want to sort your to-do list, your task list, your project list, your goals, whatever it is. This is what you're going to do. You're going to have a next up list, which is basically what is not active right now, everything else. And then you're going to have an active list. So what's going to happen is you're going to ideally work on one thing at a time. Now, I know realistically, sometimes you cannot work on one thing at a time. So the maximum amount of things you're going to have in your active phase, in your to-do list, the things you're going to do is 1 to 3 things. Ideally, you'd have only one thing. And what's going to happen is, as you complete this stuff, so you work on this, as you complete it, then you move it to completed. You drag it to the completed sort. Then once you're done with the completed, you bring in the next one. So it would look like this. So let's say these are all of the things you need to do. This is your task list. Step number one is you want to figure out what is high leverage and what is low leverage from here. So let's say this is high, this is low, this is low, this is high, and this is low. What you want to do is you want to remove all the lows and stick to the high impact stuff. So this is your next up list. So next, this is next up. So what you do first is you drag one into active, and you wouldn't look at these things. You wouldn't start these tasks or projects, whatever it is. You'd focus on this thing first. This is high impact. You'd focus on this first. You'd work on it, work on it, work on it, work on it. Once it's completed, this is completed. Let me make some more room here. Once this is completed, then you move this. You move this to the next. It's completed, then you bring in the next one. Then you bring in the next task in. So you only work on one thing in and you bring things forward. So this is called the 2-bin strategy, and it works like so. You fill this up, you're done with it, then you drag things to the next one. This is how you get things efficiently. You work on one thing at a time, and you get things done. Cool. So that's a flow system. This is how you implement it. You want to make sure you focus on, you have a next up list, you focus on what is active right now, and you complete things. One thing at a time. You have one clear thing at a time to work on. You concentrate 100% intense focus to get that thing done. 0 interruptions, 0 distractions. You get clear immediate feedback on progress towards objective as you complete work, and then you get a sense of challenge because you set yourself up to complete things in less time. So you figure out the time that you could get the thing done, and then you challenge yourself to get it done at that specific time. That is how you increase your productivity by 500%. Now, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.